Great skills again by him. Oh, marvellous goal by Lundgren.
Welcome to the Rangers journey.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this evening's post-match Dundee view. I've got Ryan and Doug with me tonight. Gents, welcome, and I hope you're feeling as good as what I am, but that was probably one of the best 3-0 victories we've had, and probably one of the most boring 3-0 victories we've had at the same time. Would you agree, Doug?
Yeah, absolutely. I was just saying to you before the match, I've never been so happy to be so bored in my life. It was a relatively uneventful, no crazy flashpoints, bar maybe one little one, and just a nice routine 3-0 victory. And I'd happily take another however many 20 odd of them if it means, as I say, we come out with a nice win at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Ryan, what about yourself, mate? Was that an enjoyable one for you today?
Enjoyable's a strong word. Enjoyable's certainly a strong word for it. Comprehensive, I think, is probably the easiest way to put it. Controlled. Didn't seem to kind of give ourselves any kind of real struggles or anything like that. It's kind of routine for pretty much everybody. Probably just more than anything else, it shows that Dundee have got a lot of work to do to keep their position in the league. For me, they were quite poor, but obviously you can only beat what's in front of you, and we did it quite well.
Absolutely. Thanks to everyone that's watching. Thank you for tuning in. We know when Rangers turn the win, the viewership's normally a little bit lower, so we hope we'll get a good number of people tuning into this evening. A few comments coming up already, which is great. Keep your comments coming in, guys. We're loving the comments already. We'll try and get through as much as we can. We'll touch on other results as well that's happened today. But I just wanted to, before we get into the game, guys, Doug, if I can come to yourself first of all. I said this in the podcast the other day, and I thought that maybe this international break was coming at the wrong time for Rangers, especially if they got a win today and that was 3 in the bounce. Is that the feeling at the moment, do you think? Is it came at the wrong time and they just wanted to carry on and try and get a wee bit of momentum behind them, do you think?
I think it's pros and cons. I mean, yeah, I think you're right in that, growing momentum is a important thing, and good to do if you can start stringing victories together. But at the same time, one of the most difficult things about being a Rangers manager is, or being a new Rangers manager, I should say, is getting your philosophies and your ideas and your tactics across to the players, because we play 2 times a week most weeks, for at least up to January, most seasons anyway. So it's good in that Rolo will get his first real consolidated bit of time with, obviously not all of the squad, but the majority of the squad, to maybe start to hone in on a few things, because I think one of the things we can say is we've seen improvements and we've seen things that he's changed, but they're still not quite they're still not quite there. Everyone's still not quite playing to their best. The press isn't quite as good as it could be, things like that. So it maybe gives them the opportunity to fine tune some of those things.
Absolutely. Ryan, from your perspective, 3 wins the bounce. People will say that's expected from a club like Rangers. We watched, I don't know if you watched the pre-match and the guys were hosting, and I think Mitch was saying we should go here and show no respect to Dundee, because that's what Rangers should be doing. Do you think we did that today?
Yeah, certainly in the first half. I thought we were quite aggressive. I thought we, were far the better team in the first half. I thought the second half, by all accounts, was reasonably even, if not Dundee probably slightly edged it as a better team with probably more chances created. I'd certainly say Buckland was the busier of the 2 goalkeeper. As much as routines were pretty comfortable, pretty kind of business as usual. McCrack has always had a great save from Raskin. Don't want to jump too far ahead, but I felt as if we got the job done in the first half, and it was pretty obvious by the second half. Almost kind of mirrored what Roma did to us on Thursday night, the way that we treated this game tonight. The job was done in the first half, and the second half was just used for legs. But just go back to what you were saying to Doug there about this is a good thing or a bad thing. For me, it's a good thing. If I was Danny Rolo, I'd be looking at this as treating it as a kind of miniature, intense pre-season now. I'd be looking at address, where are the players fitness-wise. A lot of people have been commenting about the fitness levels of the team, so I'd have everybody in and just find exactly where are the fitness levels of the squad, who needs work done on them, who needs to actually put a bit more in. As far as philosophies, patterns of play, we're losing so many goals from set pieces at this moment in time that we need to kind of tighten that up and actually come up with structures and stuff like that and get things going. I'd be really disappointed if I start seeing things like Danilo sitting on a beach in Dubai in a couple of days' time and all these kind of things, because these guys don't deserve a holiday, in my opinion. They deserve to be worked, and they deserve, they're getting paid tens of thousands of pounds a week. They deserve to be here, and they haven't earned the right to go anywhere and enjoy themselves, in my opinion. They're here to work and turn things round. So I would hope that they would have the right attitude to come and say, right, no, holidays are cancelled. We're all in. We're all going to be working. I'm hoping it's going to give the manager also opportunity to actually get a really good look at what he's got in front of him as well, and actually start a wish list for Christmas, a Christmas shopping list for Kevin Thelwell or his boy or whoever it's going to be that's actually recruiting the players there. For me, we're absolutely desperate for a striker, if not two. Majowski's really disappointed me. I thought we were going to get a lot more out of him. Chermiti gives us nothing, and Danilo is, as we know, blows hot and cold at the best of times. Yeah. That's putting politely for him. So we might even see the introduction of Dujon Sterling back after the winter break, the international break. So for me, it's positives more than anything else. I think is a good thing.
And I tend to agree with you, Ryan, as well. It's one hand, it has come up a bad thing because it's 3 wins in the bounce, but on the other hand, it is that opportunity, as you say, to try and do something a wee bit different. I think the challenging one's going to be where the amount of players that are going to be out in international duty and it's what he's left then to play around with. So I think that's going to be a tough one. But look, as you say, it is a mini opportunity here. Let's try it. Let's see what he can do, and we can see where we end up. Just before we get into the full game, I just want to give a shout out to our sponsors, Bluebells in Puerto del Carmen. Thank you for your sponsorship; it's greatly appreciated. Thank you for everyone that's tuning in. Thank you for all your comments so far. We'll get into it and we'll talk through many aspects of the game, I've got no doubt. Doug, I want to start with yourself, lineup wise. I was being champion for a 4-4-2. Sky Sports certainly put it up as 4-4-2 to begin with, and I think there was a bit of variation in the first half of it. If we go through the lineup, so at the back we had Makoma, the two centre backs, Suter and Cornelius, and then obviously to have it right back, we had Raskin and Diomande in the middle, and then obviously through up the four at the top was Moore, Danilo, Gassama and Majowski. Was it a surprise for yourself, Doug, in terms of that starting lineup, going and seeing it go back to a back four again? Was that something you expected today?
I didn't necessarily expect it, but at the same time, I don't think it's a surprise. I think one of the things I do like about Danny Role is that he does change things up, and he's not afraid to adjust things. Which is something we've not had, I think, really since Gio. Gio was really good in game management, particularly obviously in Europe, at making changes. And I think Role has shown himself, even when it's not necessarily changed the game in terms of going and bringing us to a win. Most of the time, I think he's changed games, and we've come out looking better for it.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, the second half against Celtic, I thought, he made changes that were positive and forward thinking and attacking, rather than doing the more sort of traditional sitting in and trying to break thing. He really went for the game, and as a result, I thought we had a really good second half. Ironically, as we'll maybe get onto later, I'm going to criticise some of his changes today, but yeah. So I wasn't necessarily surprised, but I think it's good that he can go into games and adjust the team depending on what he thinks the dangers are for that opposition, or indeed where we maybe can get opportunities by changing our system. I also think it probably plays a little bit towards getting the best out of certain players as well. So, for example, players like Gassama don't necessarily fit into the back three system quite as much, because they're tended to get put maybe at the fullback position or in a slightly more central position. So changing things around gives them the chance to see them in other areas of the pitch as well.
Absolutely. Ryan, we've seen from Danny Role, he's not scared to change it, as Doug said. He does make significant changes, and we're probably expecting to see that today. There's a couple of ones I wanted to touch on, though. I think we've probably been saying in the past where he could have dropped out, and one of them was Raskin. We thought he could have maybe dropped out today. The other one I was keen in seeing what he was doing with was Moore. I thought Mikey Moore had a cracking game today, and he's got to come in for some praise because we've given him a bit of stick over the last few games. But those were the two interesting ones for me. What was he going to do with Raskin, and what was he going to do with Moore? Was he going to keep Moore because his performance against Hibs and so on? What was your thoughts on those two? First of all, starting with Raskin, obviously gets his goal, could have had a second one. Moore obviously gets his goal, could have had a second one as well. What was your overall thoughts on both of those guys today, mate?
A good game. I thought Raskin was so right. He's just got a wee habit of giving away wee silly fouls every now and again, Raskin. I think that's just part of his game in general. That it's probably just a thing that he'll mature with it, because Raskin's still just a relatively young guy as far as that's concerned. So I think that's something that he probably needs to try and work on, is not giving away so many silly fouls, especially when we're renowned for not defending set pieces very well at this moment in time. So all we're really doing is just giving teams opportunities to load our box. So I'd like to see him kind of try and cut out the wee silly things that he doesn't really need and get involved in, and just kind of shutting down corridors and making them force the team to go backwards towards the defence or towards the goalkeeper, which brings our defenders out. Moore, I think, has turned a serious corner for us. I'm delighted to see him get his goal. I did say, I think it was one of the pods during the week, that he's now getting to the performance levels where he's really going to start making a difference for him now, and I think a goal will just take his confidence to a whole new level. I think today's going to be a right good platform for him. For me, he doesn't suit what we thought we were going to. I thought we were going to be signing a winger. He's not a winger. He's, by all accounts, he's just a busy player, and he's just going to go and play in pockets that he's going to go and cause damage. Like, don't think yourself as a winger. Just go where you think you're going to cause the most damage. If you think you're going to go into number 10, if you find space out wide, even if you want to jump in behind and look for the long ball, just go and do what you think is going to be best for it. And I think giving him that freedom that Russell Martin didn't is just basically bringing him the player that we thought we were going to sign. And you can certainly see there's a talent there. I think there was a comment earlier on it, why we now see that Finlay Curtis wasn't getting in the team ahead of him. I think there's a lot of us. Yeah. I'll put myself in that box as well to say why we developing Spurs as 18-year-old players when we've got our own 18-year-old player on the bench who's a similar player. You can see now the boy's class. He's going to be a gem moving forward. I've no doubt that at some point in the future he's going to be a 50, 60, 70 million pound football player. I think there's a right good talent in there. I'm glad that he's going to be here for the time that we've got him, and I think we just got to utilise him as much as we possibly can.
Definitely right. I think a lot of us wrote him off at the start and how poor he was in some games. But you're right. I think the last few games we're starting to see what he's made of. I think, which is good. Hopefully, more of it's to come, and we can get some more out of him. You just don't want Scottish football to swallow these guys up. That's the last thing we want. So hopefully, we can continue seeing what he's doing. Let's get into the game then. First 15 minutes, Doug, Rangers absolutely dominated. I thought. Two goals, obviously, we got in the opening 15. Raskin, first of all, good corner, good header. We've seen that time and time again. If he get for a small guy, he can go on the end of those crosses, and I thought he done really, really well to go on the end of it. Rangers really at that point in time just had the game in their grip. Dundee didn't look as if they were going to do really anything special. How important, though, Doug, is it to get that opening goal, especially at a place like Dens Park? And obviously, we know what Dundee can do, but how important was it for us to start off well and really get that opening goal?
Yeah, I think it's very important, particularly for this fragility that we've seen in this team. Getting that first goal can give you that confidence to push on, and I think that's what we did. Obviously, like you say, we get 2 goals in relatively quick succession in that first 15. So. It gave them the confidence, I think, to kind of push on and grow into the game. I say it was our first half, I think, that was much better than the second. And Dundee were coming into this, I think, with no fear in terms of obviously we've not been having a great season. They've already beat one side of Glasgow, so they were I'm sure looking up at the prospect of potentially making or getting a victory over both sides for the first time in quite a long time. I forget they did mention it on the commentary, but I forget the exact amount of time. So that kind of takes a bit of the wind out of their sails. Although I mean, I immediately I'm sure some of the defenders might be the same. I mean, I was immediately buoyed when I saw that they weren't starting with I've forgotten his name. Is it Murray? Sorry,
Simon Murray. Yeah,
that's the one. His name's totally skipped me there. The moment I saw he wasn't on their team sheet, I was like, "That's great," because he's been an absolute handful. And I think he's a really good striker for sort of SPL football. So I mean, I was pretty buoyed from that point straight away. And like you say, I thought the first sort of 5 minutes were a little bit bitty, kind of getting in and about, back and forth. Both teams had a little bit of chances, but then, like you say, we get that early goal, that kind of tabbing your corner into Raskin at the near post. It's becoming a repeated move I've seen throughout this season. Raskin's gotten a few heads to that. I think he scored at least one other header from that. Curtis's goal against St Mirren comes from him heading it down from a corner. So something, I think that's obviously something they've worked on from maybe last season after seeing Raskin's got a bit of an ability there.
Absolutely. Ryan, one thing I really liked was the intricate 1-2 passing today. I thought in the first half especially we'd done that really well, and we'd be able to work some spaces in there. Something different from Rangers, because normally when it's not working they just go wide and they'll try and force it from the wide channels. But today I thought we went a wee bit more direct. The second goal comes from that intricate 1-2 passing, which was really good. And Mikey Moore obviously took his goal well. I think he's took it with the inside of the foot, and he's given the keeper the eyes, which is good. But I thought it was a really good finish by Mikey Moore, especially in the fact he hasn't been high in confidence, but he took that goal well, would you say?
Yeah, fantastic. I don't know if I would call it a 1-2, mind you. I think it was a wee bit fortunate. I think it was there. I think it would be a wee bit generous to Danilo there, but at the end of the day, the ball's hit the back of the net. But it's probably just the early shoots of the flowers of what Darren Rowe's coaching is going to bring to the team, where you will see us getting up and getting this thing, expecting the low block to be often against us. So you do have to work these kind of clever 1-2s at the edge of the box, where you do have somebody basically standing up front for you as a ball, who's going to let these the 1-2 from central midfield, and you see the shots presented himself, but in another day he might just 1-2 with the striker and then just clip it in behind for somebody like Osama, Ant-Man, what have you, to try and nip in at the back post for a shot goal or something like that. So it just the more time that Rowe has with these players on the park, I think the more that we are going to see as supporters, and the better the team's going to get. And hopefully this is just another example moving forward of just ticking off boxes. There's a clean sheet again away from home. We've got one in Easter Road. We've got another one today. We haven't had one the calendar year apart from these last couple of games. So let's just keep ticking boxes. Let's keep all these horrible records that we've managed to get ourselves involved with. Let's just keep getting rid of them. Keep moving forward and just keep taking positives, moving on. The old cliche, each game as it comes to mind, but let's just keep going. Let's think about, is it Falkirk the next game at home?
Yeah. Hey, sorry, Livingston.
Sorry. Yeah. Livingston, yeah. So the Braga game, I've no interest in it at all. European football for me is more just a distraction than anything else. We need to focus about domestic football, and let's just bring our pride back. Let's just keep winning games domestically. European football will be what it will be. I don't expect us to progress at this type of competition. Part of me almost doesn't want us to progress because I want us to focus domestically. Obviously, I don't want us to get a complete embarrassment at all right face in Europe. I want us to show pride and show a bit of fight and stuff like that. But if you ask me, would I take a win domestically? I win in Europe. I take a win domestically at the moment.
I agree. I 100% agree with you, Ryan, on that one. I think Europe will now be not the focal point, but it will just be the sideshow. I think that Rangers can do without at this moment in time. So no, I absolutely agree with you. Doug, we got the second. Obviously, looking at some stats, as Ryan said, ticking off the boxes on this one. First time Rangers scored 2 goals in the first half since March, which was against Celtic when we won 3-2. I thought it was a crazy start, that one, when I heard that one today. But that just shows obviously how poor Rangers have been in first half of games that we've not scored 2 since March. So I think getting the 2 was great. But look, we were treated to obviously since the second goal to then go on to the one where we should have scored the third. There was not really much happening in the game. We get to that situation, they score the third. Immediately, I'm thinking Mikey Moore's offside. It was my first thought on it. I thought that it could have been a shout for a handball. I think the ball had struck the arm in the lead up to it, but it's in against the body. If that's given against you, you're probably going crazy at that one. But we've seen them. We've seen them being given. Obviously, Mikey Moore, good finish again from a tight angle, I thought, from him as well, which was good. But you can see the situation. He straight away knew, or he thought he was offside. But then, obviously, as crazy Scottish football is, Doug, VAR decides it's not him that's offside. It's actually Diamondi who's standing in the eye line of the goalkeeper. And Matthew McDermott's called over VAR and he's asked to make a subjective decision. What's your thoughts on that one, Doug? Obviously, looking at the situation, we've not seen the lines for the Mikey Moore one, but we have to go in and saying it's offside. What was your overall thought in the whole situation, not just the subjective part of it, Mick?
Well, I did kind of have that feeling of sometimes it feels like we score and they check everything to the nth degree, where all the players' shoelaces tied before that ball was kicked. But ultimately, when I sort of looked back on it again after half time, I think it ultimately shook out pretty fairly. I did question at first. I didn't necessarily think the deal caused any what's the word I'm looking for? Any disadvantage really, but when I looked at it again, the keeper does. I'll take the offside first. For me, I thought he was onside the entire time because there's a player kind of in the middle whose foot was slightly outstretched, and to me, I kind of thought it was either going to be like a tiny fraction or onside. The handball. Yeah, like you say, you've seen those given, but I would have thought it was harsh because I think it hits him kind of in the chest first, and then like his hand is quite close to his body, like you say, and it kind of hits his chest and then up and onto his hand. There's nothing a player can do about that, and so I thought that was fine. And then yeah, as I say, when I looked back at first, I thought, well, the players, the goalkeeper saves it, all seems fine. Where's the disadvantage? But look, when I look at it again, and sort of by the word of law, he has to take a foot to one side because Dio is standing right in front of him, and that's what then means that he then dives to his side rather than necessarily potentially having been in front of the ball where he maybe could have gathered it. So he has to then dive to his side, and then that's what obviously pushes the ball out to Moore. So you can argue, that therefore that has interfered with the play from an offside position, and so by the rule of law, it's the correct decision. Part of me still thinks it's a little bit harsh. I mean, he saves it, so where's the disadvantage? But yeah, as I say, by rule of law, it seems like it's a fair decision, and just unfortunate. Just unfortunate the way it ruled out, because I think Moore totally deserved to have gotten a second goal for his performance.
I think you're right. I think that Moore did deserve the goal from me. I think it'd have been good to get that goal. Brian, probably because of the situation, we've came away obviously with the 3-0 win, right? And we'll talk about the changes at half time, second half in a wee moment. But just if I can stick on this situation, I just felt whoever was going to get that next goal after the second one for me was so important. Now, if Dundee had went and got that goal at the start of the second half, I think we're talking more about that decision there in terms of what's went on. I think the fact that we went on and won the game 3-0 and everyone's okay, we're not really talking about it much, but it's those decisions, although it's subjective, it was very subjective, but those decisions can change things quite significantly, can't it? Because if Rangers get that goal 3-0, the game's over at half time. But if Dundee come into the second half, get another goal, it's game back on again. And you just never know at that point. And it was one of those ones you can see Butland in the second half with some of the chances Dundee were taking was really frustrated because time and time again they were getting the chances. Is that one of those scenarios for yourself that can absolutely change games, and that's where it has to be letter of the law rather than a subjective decision, and from what the commentators were saying on it?
Yeah, I think the commentators are obviously speaking with their blue glasses on, right? And I'm maybe not the best person to ask this question, but I'll come at you with two answers with it, right? First of all, I thought Matthew McDermott got it absolutely spot on. I don't think it was a handball. I think the ball's travelling upwards, and I think it's kind of going towards it. And I can see why the guy's kind of turned away. At the end of the day, see if his arms weren't there, the ball's going to hit his chest. So it's kind of on here, on his body. So it's not like he's put his hand out the way and it's out with his silhouette, if you want to call it that. So it's the consequence of his arm not being there, and the ball would have been towards the net. So for me, it's not a penalty kick. Diamandis was skewing the keeper's view, and like Doug said, the fact that the keeper did save it. However, if Diamandi wasn't there, could have been down and actually held it. He's offside. For me, I thought McDermott had a good game today, and it pains me a little bit to say that, but we've been really, really harsh on referees over the last kind of week or so. So we've actually got to give a wee bit of credit when credit's due. I thought McDermott handled the game today. There was maybe only one decision where I think it was Ant-Man in the second half, maybe about the 80th minute. skinned a few players in there, and he's probably looking for it because he's got 6 Dundee players around him and he's not really got an option. That's probably the only where I thought that was probably a foul and you've not given it. By all accounts, I thought the wee guy had a decent game today. So we've got to give credit when we're being as harsh as what we are towards Walsh. So sometimes got to be, towards it. I thought he handled me absolutely fine. The pace of the game was okay. He didn't get himself involved in anything ridiculous. He went across. He's looked at the VAR. He's agreed with probably the fact that Clancy's taken him to the screen probably suggests that Clancy does think it's either a penalty kick or a goal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But for me, I thought he's got it wrong. But to answer your question, the way that you're asking me about it, it probably kind of sums up that at this moment in time, we still don't trust Rangers to look after a 2-0 lead. Now, when most teams go 2-0 up, if you were a better team, if you were Arsenal or you were Man City, and you went 2-0 up, you would expect you would look at it and go there. Most bookmakers will actually give you your odds on the game when the team goes 2-0 up because they believe that the game's over and done with. But our kind of anxiousness and our nerves with this, still, we're not over. We're probably still get the Russell Martin scarring on us where we don't actually believe that 2-0 is safe. We don't have enough trust within our team and within our players to look after a 2-0 win. But as we've seen in the second half today, maybe we should start to learn that trust and start, looking to what our players can do when they are starting to do things and we're questioning the substitutions and stuff like that. Maybe we need to start trusting the process and trusting the manager a bit more.
It's a really good show. I think the battle scars are still there and they're going to be there for a long time from Russell Martin, I think. It's a really good point you make around trusting the process. And I think when you look at that, Dundee didn't really have too many open chances. It was very straightforward for Butler in the second half. Before we go on to that in a wee bit detailed, let's talk about the changes, Doug, if we can, that was made. He's brought 3 on at half time, which I thought was a strange one for the fact that we're leading the game 2-0. I thought 3 changes at that, maybe 2. Worst case scenario would have been what he'd been looking at. He's brought on Barron, which nobody could probably argue with that. Barron's done really well over the last few games he's came in there. He's brought on Asgard and he's brought on Chermiti. Now I think the argument is Asgard and Chermiti. You're thinking bring them in. Hopefully one of them or 2 of them can get a goal, get the confidence up, send the fans home happy. Let's start with Asgard first of all, if you can, Doug. Is it just me, or are we just not seeing it with this guy at the moment? I know he's obviously had a good goal a few weeks ago against Dundee United and things, but what's your overall take on Asgard? Because I'll be honest, my opinion is I don't see it at the moment, and I'm really struggling to see whether this guy will turn out to be a really, really, really good Rangers player or not. So I'll ask you about Asgard first, and then Ryan, I'll come on to you about Chermiti if that's okay, and you can let us know what your thoughts are on those 2.
Yeah, I sort of hinted at it earlier. I was a little bit, with how things turned out. I thought the changes at halftime were a little bit disruptive to the flow of the team. I do think the 3 players that he took off were none of them were having particularly good games. So I don't think that I don't think it was wrong in any way per se. But I'd maybe have made one change. I'd probably have taken off Miovski and then waited and given the other 2 the first 10. You kind of often see players getting the first 10 minutes and then you start seeing changes. So I'd maybe done that. But in terms of Asgard specifically, I mean, I personally think he's been slightly better than I think a lot of people are tend to. A lot of people are kind of throwing. Well, I mean, a lot of people think that pretty much all of the players we've signed have been completely rubbish from beginning to end. But I think he's been fine. But I do think we need to be getting more out of him. And I think I was looking to for more when we first signed him, and I sort of looked at him and went, okay, yeah, he looks like he could be a decent player. I think he needs to be a bit more physical. Sometimes it feels like he kind of just gets pushed off the ball a bit too easily. Sometimes he loses the ball a little bit too easily as well when he sort of turns with it. But I mean, there's obviously some ability there. He has moments. He had a couple of moments in this game, and obviously scored a great goal against Dundee United. And indeed, is it him that had the assist for one of the goals as well? So there's obviously something there. He's contributing to games, and I think he has contributed mostly to games. But I do think there's more to go, and particularly because he occupies one of those creative roles. And that's been one of our Achilles heels for a number of years, is players basically being a lot like that, being kind of fine, but not having just that extra, not having enough output to really affect games. And it's games where we struggle, or where we do, like, say, maybe we're at that point where we're 2-0 up and you just need that third to kill things off. That's when you want those extra players to really be making those differences across the season. So, yeah, for him, I want to see a little bit more in terms of creativity, and then also a little bit more in terms of output. He needs to get some of those, get some more goals, get some more assists, and just trying to affect games a bit more. And so, like Ryan was talking about fitness over the international break. So I think a player like him, if I'm Danny Rule, I'm looking at him and going, right, I'd like to see you hit some weights over this period, and try and bulk up a little bit, get a bit of muscle, and try and tackle the Scottish game on the physical level a little bit better.
Yeah, totally agree. I think Doug, for me, with Asgard, I think he's got the talent. He has. You've seen it at previous clubs he's been at. Some people are saying he needs to lift his head, and he's good on the ball and things. I just think he looks a bit slow, and sometimes when the play goes through him, he slows it down, and any good chance we've got, he can take it away. So it's a really interesting one for me with Asgard, because I really hope he does come good. Like Mikey Moore is starting to shine. I really hope we can start to see that from Asgard as well. So hopefully we'll get that over the next few games. Ryan, just coming on to the man himself, which is Chermiti. He's obviously coming in for a lot of criticism from Rangers fans at the moment. And rightly so, I think, for an £8 million price tag for not scoring as many goals as what he scored. I think he scored one here at the moment. You can understand where the criticism is coming from. But I think today, if I can, there's a couple of things that I want to touch on, Ryan, if you could. The balls up top to him. I counted maybe 5 or 6 balls getting thrown up top, and he's headed every one of them on. There's just nobody been there around it. And I thought his running and behind was pretty good. Okay, he's ran out the park, one he's taken a shot and the keeper saved it. But what was your overall thoughts of Chermiti today? And is he a player that, obviously, there's been talk around him going out and loan to Braga as such in January. Is he a player that should be staying here at Rangers and really fighting for his career rather than getting pushed out, especially with that price tag hanging over him as well, mate?
Yeah. I'm going to try my best to know the price tag, mate, if I can, right? Because the price tag isn't necessarily the player's fault as such, right? You've got to look at the fact you've got a young guy there. How old is he? 20, 21?
21, I think.
21, right. So he's a very young man still, and he's still he needs to find out as a footballer, what is he good at? What kind of footballer is he? And he's still very, very raw, and he needs a lot of coaching. Now, I don't think we're the right club for him, and I don't think us spending £8 million, I know I said I would just ignore that, right? But I don't think us using all that money and bringing him in as our focal number 9 striker was the right thing to do, because he's clearly not ready for top flight football, right? So I think we've made a mistake in signing him, but anyway, he's here now, right? We need to find out what he's good at and how we're going to use him as a football club, right? If we're going to punt the ball up to him and we're going to rely on flick-ons, like you said, we need to get people closer to him. If we're going to get him so that he's the player that we put the ball up to and he holds the ball in, then we need to teach him how to control a football, because at this moment in time, he's got to touch that set of railings, right? Everything he touches, there was probably about 4 or 5 times he's I noticed there was one that he chested the ball and it's literally bounced off him. And he said one that's been up front, he's chested the ball inside the box and it's just ran out of play. There's one that he's then lost control of the ball and he's trying to wipe the player out. So we've got to work on the guy. We've got to get better coaches around him and actually work on him. And he's got to apply himself to that process as well. If he wants to make it as a footballer, whether it's Rangers or if he wants to make a career and earn money playing football, he needs to apply himself to this process, because at this moment in time, he's just simply just not ready. The physical side of it, he's huge. He's a man, right? He's got all the physical attributes to go on and be a right good player. But, he's probably just an athlete first at this moment in time and a footballer second. So we've got to get the right people around him. He's got to work on this. He's got to work on his time on the park. He's got to be watching players. He's got to be watching old videos back of guys. There's 2 guys in particular who I would like to see will get in to work around him, right? We've spoken to Duncan Ferguson during the pod last week. If we're going to get him to be in and be this kind of target man, there's no better person that can come in and teach him how to be a target man than Duncan Ferguson, and teach him about the passion of Rangers and blah, blah, blah. Regardless of what happened with Duncan Ferguson in the past, whether he would be able to come back in and do a wee bit of work with Rangers on some sort of fixed contract basis. Another guy I would like to come in and work with him when he's finishing is Jermaine Defoe. So if we can get two guys like that who are Premier League strikers, who played in the Premier League for years and years, who are affiliated with Rangers, who know what it takes to make it at Rangers. Maybe Duncan Ferguson didn't quite make it. Maybe that's a bad example. But two guys that would come in and work with him and hopefully get the better out of him and then deliver him back to Danny Rose saying, right, we believe that we've increased his finishing. So if the opportunities do fit in front of him, then that's it there. But at this moment in time, it's too raw. We now need to go out and sign probably two strikers in January so that we can stick him to the side because he's not going to be the striker this year. Yeah, and I think we've probably seen it with Hamza Egeman. Hamza Egeman, although he was a fantastic player and he's probably going to go on and have a fantastic career, he wasn't Rangers' first choice striker last year. So why have we brought in this development project and shoved him right up front when we didn't do that to Hamza Egeman? It's not fair in Chermiti as a guy. You know, if we were getting a bit more out of Majowski, which we should be getting a bit more out of Majowski, he's the experienced one. He's obviously been successful at this level. But it's fallen on Chermiti and I don't think it's necessarily fair on the guy. But everyone is going to point the finger at the price tag and all the pressure is going to be. He showed up at Ibrox on Thursday night with a hood on, with his hands in his pocket, with his shoelaces weren't even tied. It's wee things like that you need to get to and say, mate, get your hood off, get your hands in your pocket, and get your shoelaces tied. You're here to work tonight. We're playing a European game tonight against Roma. Get yourself sorted out. So it's wee things like that. It's attitudes and behaviours that he needs to sharpen up himself personally as an adult. But we'll wait and see.
Professionalism though, Ryan, isn't it? It's just being professional, turning up for your work and ready to do a job. And I think at a club like Rangers, that professionalism shines through more than anything for anyone.
Because he probably just doesn't know how lucky he is.
Yeah.
He probably just doesn't realise how lucky he is, and he maybe needs a couple of guys to come in that maybe internationally recognises something and goes like, do you realise how lucky you are to be playing this football club with number 9 in your back?
Yeah,
come on. So opportunities like this won't come again to you. See if you don't make it here, chances are, there's a comment earlier on, you're going to be playing for Oxford United in a few months' time. If you don't sort yourself out, you need to come in here and you need to apply yourself better. You need to get yourself out your wee sulk and throwing your toys about and cupping your ears when you score and stuff like that. You've not earned the right to cup your ears when you score in front of us at the Copeland Road. Like you need to sort yourself out and apply and earn your wages first, pal.
Absolutely. And Neil McCann said it during the commentary. He said the amount of players that wore that number 9 jersey and the boots he's got to fill in the back of that is incredible. So, yeah, no, and I think now, look, I'm trying not to be too critical of the guy, right? But at the same time, it's everything that's getting shown at the moment. He's not showing any greatness at the moment with it. I think, look, you made a really good point, and one I want to touch on Majowski as well. You'd mentioned there, Ryan, around we're probably going to sign two strikers in the January window, and I agree with you wholeheartedly, right? But Doug, I would like to bring you in on this one as well. Is Majowski a classic example of it's not a guarantee to work for you? Because right now, Majowski is, let's be honest, he's not any better or any worse than what Chermiti is at the moment, right? And Majowski's played at this level. He's played in the league. He knows the league, and we know that Majowski can score goals, but it's not happening for him at the moment. Is this the risk that you take when you go and spend, whether it's the 3 million that was the rumour on Majowski, whether it's the 8 million it's on Chermiti, whether it could have been a free for Shankland or whoever it could have been, you're not guaranteed that somebody's going to come in and play and score the goals. So what does Rangers look for, Doug, when you come to January? Because I'm struggling at the moment to think of players that could come in there, right? In our price market, in our price range. And Ryan, I would like to get your points on this as well after, Doug. But who would be the ones that we could probably come in there and say, these are your guys that are going to come in, give you an absolute shift in there up front, and is going to get the goal for you as well? Who would be the ones that you would see in the top of your mind for that one just now, mate?
Well, I mean, it's the problem with football. There's no guarantee when you bring in any footballer. I mean, you wouldn't have said, if you looked back at Dessa's record prior to him coming in to the club, you'd never have said he'd have scored as many goals as he did. Now, whether or not you think he should have scored double of what he did, you know, his record was okay, but in spots at certain clubs. So he looked like he was going to come in, be okay, and you know, I think he turned out better than his record states. I mean, if you look at Majowski, obviously we talk about him and for his period at Aberdeen. Those 2 seasons are really the only good seasons he's had in his career, and he's been playing since sort of 2016-17. And the majority of the time he's, well, prior to Aberdeen, he'd never gotten more than 10 goals in all competitions in a season. So it's possible that, you know, that was his 2 great seasons. I think, you know, it's perfectly feasible Dessers will go on and never score as many goals as he did when he was with
Absolutely.
us. And it's possible that Miovski, that was just his 2 seasons. You get players, particularly players that maybe do move around a lot, like sort of, I think sort of Miovski has and like a Dessers has. You tend to find a lot of time these players do just they hit a club that things just click for them, and they'll do that.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of who do we bring in, I mean, as I said, it's difficult. Obviously, a lot of people were really keen on getting someone like Lawrence Shankland. I think that boat has long sailed and been back and gone off again multiple times, and I mean, he's sitting at the top of the table, albeit they've drawn today, but he's sitting top of the table looking like they're the possibility of creating Scottish history. So you're not getting you're going to have to do well to pull him out of that situation, Rangers fan or not. I know people are keen on Hearts' other guy as well, but I mean, it's still early days on someone like him. So the answers I don't really know. There's nobody that immediately comes to mind that is both available and within our price range. I know a couple of players that I think are too expensive. I know a couple of players that you could sign, like maybe like a Kieran Bowie, that we're never going to be able to get in a January. So that's where Kevin Thelwell has got his work cut out for him, because he's in a club now where he's pretty much universally disliked, universally wanted out. Obviously people saw all the banners and things that were on the Roma game. And if he's got any hope of turning that around, the start will be by finding those players that we currently don't know, and bringing them to the club. They obviously said that they're going to be shopping on a broader market than just sort of down south. So I think that's what we'll need to see in the January, is them looking into these broader markets and finding some gems that can necessarily do what Ryan's saying and get goals, because we're really struggling. You talked about the surprise that we hadn't scored 2 goals in the first half since that Celtic game. It's really not that surprising when you thinking about how poor we've been and struggling to draws and 1-1 draws. We're not scoring goals. And our problem before this season was that we didn't score enough goals, and we relied too much on Dessers, too much on Tavernier. And so when you get rid of Dessers and also Egerman and Cherney, who are other major scorers, and you're then relying on a Tavernier that's another year older, that little bit slower, we really do need to start getting some hits on this on our recruitment, because if we don't, then we're going to just continue to struggle.
Absolutely. Brian, I think this is where the frustration then comes in, from the fact that we don't have players firing all cylinders, whether it's wingers, creative midfielders, or even more strikers at the moment. None of them are doing it. With Rangers, you would normally find that if your strikers are not doing it, you would have the backup from a winger or a central midfielder or attacking midfielder, or you would even maybe have the backup from a young homegrown player coming through and someone who gives the fans a little bit of excitement and maybe try and scores a couple of goals or whatever. But we don't have any of that at the moment at Rangers. Nothing coming through. I think Josh Gentles was the only one that came through, and then he's obviously been put out on loan as well. But is that the frustrating part at the moment, Ryan, that there isn't someone there? And I think the likes of Miovski and Chermiti and Danilo, those guys to an extent, they know there's no one else there at the moment. So if one of them's having a bad day, the other two are in, or if the other one's having a bad day, the other two are in. There's nothing there to push them at the moment, I think. And is that, obviously it's an issue for Rangers, but from their point of view, is that the thing that's lacking, do you think, in terms of giving those strikers the kick up the backside they need to go and perform week in, week out?
Yeah, but that's probably exactly it. There's nobody out there that's desperate to rip their jersey off, and there's nobody, truth be told, that deserves to rip their jersey off. We've sold Dessers and we've sold Egerman in the summer, and we've downgraded dramatically. The recruitment in the forward department's been nothing short of deplorable. It's shocking how bad it's been. Even last club Cherney, with the amount of goals that he scored for his last season, that you look at just between Cherney, Egerman and Dessers there, and there's nobody out there. All three of them had their faults. Cherney was wildly left-sided. It was unbelievable. I thought it only took a team a few minutes to work him out that he was so left-sided, but he still done the damage and he still got the goals. Dessers, if he was prolific, would have scored 50 goals this season rather than the 25 that he scored there. So it just shows you what you've got and what you wish for. You know, that how many of these were given pelters. Dessers was the laughing stock of our group chat. If it wasn't for Big Mitch, you know, they're taking the down as much as possible. So it's scary, but you know, it's as far as who's out there and who's available to them. Probably the one thing that we do have in our favour is that this is a World Cup year, and I dare say there's a few people that are sitting on the periphery of the World Cup squad that will be desperate to try and get, you know, book their place so they can go and play in the World Cup in North America. And maybe we could give them that platform that they could just go and catch the eye to do that. Ibrox is a great place to come and play football if we're being nice. You know, if the fans aren't too much on your back, it can be a terrible place to come play your football in times. But, you know, there's no better place to come play when things are going right for you. So it would be a great platform, you know, for somebody that could maybe just come in and, you know, give us 10, 15 goals or something like that, you know, between January and May. Could somebody come and do us a favour, you know, that's desperate, that might be mutually beneficial for both parties. But it's just getting out there and finding them and offering them more than what other people will, because guys like that will have, you know, lots of suitors that will be looking to go and take them on. But I think that's something that we could maybe do. We don't need to necessarily go and spend a lot of money, but what we need to do is go and find good calibre talent.
Absolutely. Just going back to the game again, we had the situation. So second half was really poor, gents. I think compared to what we seen in the first half, we didn't see as many of the 1-2 intricate passing from Rangers. There was a wee bit of it as the game wore on, but there wasn't the same passing level as there was in the first half. I think Rangers were strolling at certain points in time. Dundee had a 15-minute period towards the middle to end of the game where I think the possession was nearly 80-20 was the possession for them without really doing much. And I think I touched on it. Jack Butland was really frustrated with some of the crosses that was coming in, the chances that they were able to get. That's obviously for me where I was talking about the piece where if you get that goal, Dundee gets a goal, we really are nervous at that point. Anything could happen there. But I want to give a shout out to one that I've really criticised over the last few games, and it's John Souttar. I thought John Souttar today dealt with everything like a defender should. And I don't want to get too ahead of myself because I don't think he was spectacular by any means, but I thought John Souttar, anything that went through him today, Doug, was really on the money. He was clearing his lines. He wasn't taking any chances. I thought, for me, if you take away Mikey Moore, John Souttar would have been the man of the match for me today. What was your overall thoughts on him and the defensive display you've seen from Rangers today compared to what you've seen previously?
Yeah, I thought we were defensively solid today. Dundee didn't really have any really strong chances. I don't think we restricted them from hitting mostly from distance. And pretty much every one they took just went straight down Jack Butland's throat, and I think, you know, it was pretty much bread and butter for him. So from that perspective, I thought we did well. I also thought Magoma had one of his best defensive performances today. The lad, I forget the guy's name, but I think he's on loan from Sunderland. I think it was
Swansea.
Yeah. You know, he's got the most assists in the league. So he was going to be a dangerous player, and I thought he kept him pretty quiet. There was a couple of times in that second half where he was kind of resorted to having to just swing a ball in, and it was just going high and out. And so I thought he did pretty well. Obviously, Cornelius, he was obviously loving life so much he wanted to stay on, despite the fact he was injured. And I quite liked as well. We talk a lot about leadership and things like that over the last couple of years. When he was sitting there seeming like he wanted to stay on, John Souttar was quite very clearly, "No, you're injured, go." Yeah. Which I think was the exact thing that he should have been doing, because, you know, we're 2-0 up, we're pretty comfortable in the game, and you're one of our better defenders, so you get off right now, because I don't want you staying on and then taking another wee dink because a attacker thinks, oh, he's looking weak in that right foot. It gives him a wee knock, and that's him out for weeks instead of maybe has a couple of days. So I was happy to see that. The only downside was that it annoyed me because I was like, oh yeah, we're getting to see Cameron, and then that got kiboshed. Although that ended up turning out okay as well. But anyway, back to the defensiveness. Yeah, I thought Suter was good. I mean, I personally think John Suter gets a lot more grief than he deserves. Yes, he makes mistakes. He's really poor sometimes with the ball over the top of his head. He can lose a man when he's got someone that's a little bit more sort of got a clever movement about them, as we saw against Roma. I don't think he's the best defender in the world. I do think that ultimately we do want to be looking at better, but particularly, when he has someone solid beside him, I think he plays better. And he does have a skill set that he's very good at. A lot of people talk about the sort of the siege defender kind of thing, and he's excellent at that kind of role. And that's why he tends to excel, for example, with Scotland when Scotland are under the cosh and things like that, because he does that kind of thing very well. And I think that's largely why we probably signed him in the first place, because he was doing that kind of thing for Hearts. He had a match against us just before he came over. In fact, I think was it the cup semi?
It was a Scottish Cup final, mate.
Final. I couldn't remember. I think it was the final or semi, where he had an absolutely excellent game. And that was sort of that exact kind of thing. So I do think he has skill sets there, and he does do reasonably well. But as I say, when the defense as a whole isn't playing well, he's not good enough to help bring levels up around him. And I think for the John Suter, someone asked in our group chat, why is John Suter always getting picked? And it's because he's probably ultimately still our best defender. You could maybe start sneaking Cornelius into that. And he's obviously the vice captain, so he's kind of the main man in that back four alongside Tavernier. And so I think, what we really do need that player that is that little step above, because you want that player to be the one that helps to lift those around him when we're struggling. And he doesn't really have that, I don't think. And so obviously when the defense is poor, quite often he's poor as well. So he does like that. But yeah, let's say solid today. Back four, as I say, we're all solid, I thought. Tav didn't really seem to get himself in any defensive muck-ups either. So yeah, it was a good performance, and something that's positive as well, because obviously we went to the back three because we were struggling so much with a back four. So going back to a back four and seeing them perform well is something good as well. Because again, it just gives us those more options moving forward.
And I think, Doug, as well, Ryan said it earlier on, great to see another clean sheet from Rangers as well. That's 2 bounce away from home. Two tough venues as well. I mean, that's a really good thing on that one. So, no, it's been great to see that. Ryan, just come on to the third goal. As Doug said, JD was probably lucky to be on the park as Cameron was due to come on. It'd have been great to see Cameron because we've not seen enough of him, I don't think, personally, myself. The Gassama one, I want this to be a kind of positive. I'm trying not to be too critical of these players, but if you've heard me in previous podcasts, Gassama's one that I've not been a big fan of over the last few games. I didn't think his work rate and his effort has been there. Is fit bit of saying though, Gassama and Cornelius the only two today who's really stood out for him, and it's all about opinions with these guys, but he took his goal well. I thought Gassama thought it was a good finish. And again, another player we've talked about, Asgard, getting an assist with that as well. He did have a good finish, but it's the frustrating thing, Ryan, for you and probably most Rangers fans, that we're not seeing enough of this from Gassama week in, week out. He's shown us flashes of what he can do. And I know he's still settling in and things like that, but is that the big frustration with Gassama, in that he's not shown it enough game in, game out? It's always coming in wee pockets here and there.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's probably suffering a lot of what Ryan Kent used to suffer from as well, where he identifies a kind of target man and teams will tend to double up on him. And I think he's struggling to handle that. He obviously plays on the left-hand side and likes to kind of get the ball out and go on his right foot and get a shot away. But what you're probably finding is that they're trying to push him down the wing, and he's been forced down the wing because he can't cut back inside because the second guy's standing there waiting just to take the ball off him. So I think Rose probably hasn't used him that well either. You've seen him grow over the right hand side. He's not that effective on the right hand side as on the left hand side. Although insane, I think that was it the European game during the week. I thought you got to see him in a couple of half decent positions with Rose, but on another day, if we had a half decent strike or something different might have happened there. But I think that's probably where he is kind of suffering. That we do need maybe somebody to help him. And I think an overlapping fullback, if McComa would get a wee bit more confident to actually get up and help him a little bit more, might help him in that respect. But we've just got to be patient with him. We just need to make sure that he doesn't turn into another Rabbi Matondo, because we had hopes of Matondo when he started like this, that, the pacey winger that would cut in and have the crack of goal. Matondo had that. And all of a sudden he's just basically turned into, a salary thief more than anything else, being totally honest. I know that's really harsh on Matondo, but that's effectively what it is. He's a drain in the bank balance of the club at this moment in time. So, but I think Jerry's he's a great talent. We just got to kind of use him a little bit more and just help him a wee bit more. And even just when you're touching about Asgard there, if you take Asgard, I think probably when you're talking about players who don't have anyone to challenge them, when you're talking about the strikers, Asgard does, and Cameron. So Asgard needs to pick his socks up quickly, because we're all chapping at the bit to see Lyle Cameron come into the team. All the fans are calling for it. We were wanting to see more of Lyle Cameron. Asgard needs to get his work rate up. He needs to improve what he's doing when he gets the minutes on the park. But if you'd said to us, think about where Mikey Moore was 5-6 weeks ago, there was people in the chat calling him a pub player and saying he wasn't good enough, and calling for us to send him back to Spurs and questioning if we had contract obligations to play him and stuff like that. Now he's probably our best player today. So you never know, in 5-6 weeks' time, Taylor Asgard might be that guy. Just something might just help him just turn the corner. He had a great goal against Kelly. We need to see more of that from him. But Gassam is just somebody I think we just need to be a bit more patient for. I think we need to help him more, because it's obvious the teams are doubling up against us and really kind of pushing him hard. And it's flattering him. It's a compliment to him that teams are doing that against him. But I thought he took his goal well. I thought that'll kind of give him something to work with over the winter break. I keep calling it the winter break. Sorry, the international break.
I hope you're right. I really like Gassam, and that's why I'm trying not to criticise him too much, because I think it's a shame for him, because you're right, there is a few teams doubling up. I think we've seen it in a few games where there were 2-3 men on him at any given time, because they know he is that dangerous. So definitely something he needs to work on, I think, over the upcoming international break, and we can see where we end up. But I think, gents, I know we've had a really good discussion on the game overall. We've had lots of comments coming in. I think it's been fantastic. So thank you for all the comments that come in. We're trying to get up as many as you can and touch on some of the points you're talking about. One thing I just wanted to, if we can, just finish up with, just touch on, is the Danny Rowe effect, right? Danny Rowe has come in, and that's 3 wins on the bounce from a league perspective. Obviously, the unluckiness in the cup game, and then obviously the 2 defeats in Europe. We've all said the league's the bread and butter, right? And that's the one we now want to go, and we're starting to see a wee bit of momentum there. One of the things I wanted to touch on, Doug, was his relationship with the fans. I've seen it after the game, and how the fans have taken to him and stuff. And obviously, it's very, very different to what the situation was with Russell Martin. My question to you both, and I'd really like to hear both of your points in this before we finish up tonight, but is the Danny Rowe effect, in terms of the relationship he's got with the fans, is it because of how bad the situation was with Russell Martin, and the fans are just taking to him because we need that figurehead to take to? Or is it because the fans can see this guy's got something about him, and he could take Rangers to places where we want to be and where we should be? What's your thoughts on Danny Rowe overall, Doug?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit of both. Mostly the latter, though. The Russell Martin era was just so horrendous. Everything that could possibly have gone wrong went wrong under Russell Martin. We were appalling. We started off poorer than we have done in decades. The players that we brought in weren't performing. Just everything was absolutely atrocious. So I think unless you'd have had to have gone a long way to have not improved from that in some degree, and therefore, the fans would have picked up a little bit. But the thing that Danny Rowe has done is I said it when he came in. He got a lot of really good quick wins, things that I think Russell Martin could have maybe considered to have helped himself. So, like the things that some people think they matter hugely, some people think means nothing. The suit and the brogues, he had them on straight away. He immediately said he was going to be wearing them pitch side. Little things like that. So, like I say, some fans couldn't care less about what the manager wears, but for some people, those things matter because they represent the tradition and they represent the heart of the club. And that's what obviously most of us feel is missing right now. Our club is not the club that for a lot of us we've grown up with, and that's what we're trying to recapture. So that represents those. So he got some quick wins with little things like that, but then also he said the right thing. So that's an easy thing I think to do as well when you come in. He talked about win first and play good football later. And then he's backed that up by winning football matches. Obviously, he's not winning every football match, but you've got to give him time to work up to that. And then there was the things like going up and engaging with the fans after matches. The first match at Bran, which was like really poor. Despite the fact that I genuinely don't think there was a single person that was attaching that result to him in any shape or form, because he'd been in the door about 5 seconds, but he still took responsibility because he's the man. He nonetheless was the manager, and so he went over and he talked to the fans about that. He engaged with the fans at the airport at that incident with Farewell. And then he's backed that up with what you said there about you can see changes happening. You can see him doing things differently. And that's what we were crying out for under Russell Martin, because Russell Martin was doing the same thing over and over and just finding new excuses to not change it. Whereas, Danny Rule came in and immediately went, we're struggling with long balls over the top. I'm going to move to back three. Straight away, he was like, there's a problem. Here's a solution, or at least a potential one, and put it in. And lo and behold, we immediately looked a bit better defensively. And then you've seen him try different things since then. We went back to back four today. He's recycling around players, not necessarily maybe all the players we like. As I say, we've not maybe seen, for example, Lau Cameron as much, but you can't cycle everyone all the time. But he's cycling through players, giving people minutes. Danilo came in from the cold. We started to see Giga again. So it's quite obvious that he is giving players chances to impress him and to say to him, you should play me. He's given them a couple of games, and then if they've not performed, he's maybe brought other players back in. So you see him doing things. And I think that's a big thing. When you're a new manager in the door, not everything, we always say, win every single match. But realistically, we will allow for hiccups to occur if we can see that process. That happened with Gerrard. Gerrard took 3 years to get it right. And there was a tipping point where it might have not quite got there, but ultimately we could see things happening. He also had quick wins. He looked the part, he sounded the part, and he started to develop the team. We started beating Celtic, and not just beating them, but beating them convincingly. So people gave him the time. And I think if Rowe continues to show that, then people will continue to give him the time. I almost that entire 90 minutes, I think the fans were just singing Danny Rowe the entire time. And so to go from our manager needs a police escort away from the ground to practically 90 minutes of having the manager sing his name, I think it really just shows you can make quick differences. And I think this is something that we sometimes maybe need to keep in mind about the team itself. We don't necessarily have to throw the entire baby out with the bathwater. Rowe will be able to get things out of players that wasn't being gotten before. So Mikey Moore is the early example. Hopefully, like Ryan said, I think it was Ryan that said, we'll maybe see that from Asgard in a couple of weeks' time, or other players. There'll be players over the course of the season that will improve. And so if we can just get the right additions, so like you say, at least one striker that can get regular goals, maybe a defender, another defender that can shore things up a bit, then you'll start to get the better out of players around them as well, and you can sort of make that team better. And I from the early stuff that we've seen, as it stands, Danny Rowe has given me the confidence to believe that he can potentially do that.
Ryan, just as Doug said there, the confidence is there from the Rangers fans, I think, in Danny Rowe, and it's good to see. I touched upon Danny, the reason for it being because I liked the way he interacted with the fans at the end of the game, and I've liked the way he's been doing that. I thought he took a bit of harsh criticism from Chris Boyd in the Sky Sports studio, both for his half-time antics and then for what he's done at the end, which I thought was a bit out of order from Chris Boyd, if I'm being honest, because I think the guy's just trying to get those quick wins, as Doug has said. I'll give you the last word on Danny and what we can bring to Rangers. What's your overall thoughts, and how impressed have you been with him up till now, mate?
I think he started well. It's apparently obvious and abundantly obvious that Danny Rose learned his trade at the top of football, whereas Russell Martin learned his trade at the bottom of football. Russell Martin, by all accounts, in my opinion, was blagging it as a Rangers manager. He was winging it week to week, and it just was never going to work. But it's working. It's there, and he's basically he's doing the right things. Obviously, things like the suit and the brogues and all these wee things might not mean a lot to some people. It means absolutely everything to some others. So just put the suit and the brogues on. Just eliminate the silly thing about it. Just put them on. It doesn't even really matter. There's a comment there that it doesn't matter if he's wearing a mankini as long as Rangers are winning. I'm cool with the mankini as well, by the way, as long as we're winning, right? It doesn't matter, right? But just put the suit on, mate, because don't say you're sweaty and all this kind of crap. Just don't patronise us. Don't talk down to us, and don't lie to us and tell we're playing really, really. He's cut away saying that was great. We just scored a last minute goal against Livingston, who's given us 3 stands to go. It's like all these teams that we should be absolutely, rolling over the top of. Excuse the pun, but it's all these kind of ones that he's just doing the right thing. He's got the right body. He's getting into the media. He's not causing loads of stupid, insane, daft things in the media, talking about his mum and all this kind of crap. But, he's doing absolutely everything that Russell Martin, should have done. Just ease your way in, don't make ripples, just do the right thing, go out and win football games, and just get better every single week. And ultimately, at the end of the season, hopefully you get that silverware in your hand. I do, however, think that he picked the wrong team in the semi-final. I wouldn't have played his defensive what he's did. I just felt that the team that he did play, without going over old rope, I just felt that the team he played invited them to come on top of. He's playing 5 defenders at Hampden, just invites the team to come and play in your half. I do believe that it was an opportunity with Gassama, that if he played Gassama on the left-hand side, we could probably get Ralston and go at him a little bit quicker. So I don't believe that he's, invincible. I don't believe that he's, without fault. He is going to make mistakes, and we have seen games that we have made mistakes in. We did lose 3-0 against Brann, which is not a great result. No fault of his. Point out, we haven't laid a glove on Roma at Ibrox. Years gone by, we were sitting there thinking we would at least have challenged this team a few years ago. We were in a European final just a few years back, and we're getting so he's not without fault. But see if he keeps winning games domestically, and at the end of the season, we're basically in the ring. At the end of the season, I would be happy with what he's doing. But he just needs to keep doing what he's doing and just keep plugging away, doing his business and doing his business well. And hopefully the club back him. Hopefully he's given, if he goes into the boardroom and says, I need 2 strikers, I need another left back, I want a better centre half, hopefully they give it to him, because if they don't, they might as well just see themselves out the door. They've admitted the mistake. I think Kavanagh turned around and says that he recognised it, he owns it, and he fixes it. Right, well, you've recognised your mistake, you've owned that you fixed it, but part of fixing it as well is also tooling up the new manager. So make it happen, please.
And look, another positive, Ryan, for today would be the gap's been cut on the league leaders who drop points at home. This is maybe where they're going to start to find it a wee bit difficult in terms of being those pace setters and everyone's chasing. I don't want to get too much into the numbers because the numbers are still quite big at the moment, but another positive, would you say, in that sense of things, Ryan, in terms of it's another 2 points cut off the lead?
Yeah, yep. I think there's certainly key players at Hearts' side of things, but again, the Shank Wonder obviously key for them. They're kind of big too, and everyone's kind of raving about them. If either of them get injured, then you start seeing it. Hearts could effectively be that old house of cards, and you start just pulling the cards out, and it's just start falling apart. So we just need to wait and see. But listen, I'm happy for Hearts to be doing what they're doing. It's refreshing for Scottish football that somebody else is actually coming out and upsetting the big two and actually coming and doing it. Do I want to see them there at the end of the season? Absolutely not. I want to see us there at the end of the season, of course. Yeah. But it's great and it's refreshing, and it puts a more of an onus and a bigger challenge towards us. And hopefully that it's all about, we don't need to necessarily rely on no firm games to win the league. We need to win no firm games. We want to win the league because there's other teams in the league that can actually go out and do damage against the other team from the other side of the city. Absolutely.
Well, gents, thank you. Your insight, your passion, your knowledge about Rangers is second to none as always. And your updates here tonight to everyone that's watching, it's been fantastic. So thank you to you both for your time and your efforts this evening. It is greatly appreciated. Thank you to everyone who's put the comments in. Some of the comments have been fantastic. It's been great to see you all. It's been great to just come on after a victory and really talk about some really good stuff with Rangers again, which has been brilliant. I've not done too many of these my time with the Rangers Journal, so it's great to do this. And obviously, folks, we do this for you guys, and we wouldn't be able to do it if you're not tuning in. Is what I'm saying in that. So thank you very much for your support and for coming on tonight. Thank you to our sponsors and Bluebells, Puerto del Carmen, Lanzarote. Greatly appreciated as always. Look, to sum up, we are going to international break. 3 points, 3 wins on the bounce for Danny Rule. The Rule train keeps going, and let's see what we can get after the international break. During that time, there'll be lots on here in the Rangers Journal. Lots of content still to come up next week. There'll be loads of shows on, loads of discussions to be taking place. So please tune in when you can, folks. But again, thank you to everyone for tuning in. And just remember, folks, every night is the Rangers Journal night. Thank you.